Welcome to Cats and Rats Podcast, covering your Florida Panthers.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the newest episode of the Cats and Rats Podcast. This is number 27. Scott Mellenby. Anyone?
If you don't mention Lusto,
Nick Bukestad? Nick?
Man.
Am I forgetting anyone?
No, I don't think so. I'm trying to think here.
None of those guys have a Stanley Cup.
No,
Wasn't there Steven Reinprecht or something?
At one point. I'm sure we can think of some others.
I mean, you're just missing the greatest penalty killer in Panthers history right now. I mean, Stanley Cup champion Eetu Luostarinen to you.
I wanted you to say the name, Cody. So
Look,
I wish that contract was a little less.
what are you talking about? It's perfect.
Nick,
I don't know what your definition of perfect is, but
what day is this? August what? Write this down. Oh, we don't want to
28th.
Okay,
The
28th this might be
of
out
August.
after Labor Day weekend.
When he scores 35 points this year, you'll thank me.
There we go. 35 points, Kirby. You hear that? It's all worth it now.
Whoa.
Hey,
Here we go.
10 million.
I'm
10
still
points,
waiting for
10 points for each million you give him. You give him 10. Oh man, sky's the limit.
I mentioned E2 and then we go off on this whole tangent. On this podcast episode ahead, we're going to break down Aleksander Barkov and the new top 10 center rankings. Cody's going to show last year's rankings and this year's rankings. And then later on this episode, got a special guest here, Frank Forte. Awesome to have him. I see he's kind of part of our community, always sharing and liking my tweets and interacting on our Twitter X platform. So make sure to join us there. We'll have to get him to come by on our spaces sometime this offseason or maybe even during the season. But guys, without further ado, let's get to the list here. Aleksander Barkov. But before we do that, I want to read some fan feedback here. So again, Aleksander Barkov's moved up 4 spots from last year, from 9 to 5. So I asked our community, Cats and Rats community, what are your thoughts here? Popper Selly said, no, a Selke winner should be ranked 1 or 2. I told him that's a bold take. Lynn, the Spursy one, wrote, you could argue he's better than Draisaitl. Jamie, we all know Jamie and love Jamie. Jamie said, the NHL is a league where only thing that matters to people is what you do by points. Now, I don't know if you can say that when the defensive rankings were recently released here for our very own Gustav Forsling. He said if Barkov had 100 points, he'd be number 1 easily because of his defense metrics. This is from Straight Edge, Maddie Matheson. He's top 2, but he's not number 2. Kind of fooling me around there. Tori mentioned, I think it's fair. He has to get more goals this season. I said, yeah, but I also said I think his health, guys, is really key. Timmy says top 3. Lord Stanley says it's okay. There's a lot of talent in the league. I don't really care. I don't think he really cares if you ask him. He's a humble guy. For argument's sake, he's the best 200-foot center, so maybe that makes him number 2 behind McJesus. Hockey Chick Pamela says should have been at 4 above Leon, which seems to be a consensus, guys, within the community. And then 4KZ says, or 4Z, as you guys say, the real CG3 says, I'm convinced he'll be underrated his entire career. So, guys, where do you want to start here?
I'll say this. First one mentioned the Selke winner, I think. Aren't all 4 of the guys ahead of him on this year's list? I know we have the 2023 list up, but 2024 list, aren't they all Hart winners?
Hart winner. Matthews against Selke votes now. I don't know if anything.
Yep, here's 2024. Yep.
2024 right there.
McDavid, couple hearts. McKinnon just won his first heart this year. Matthews won 2 years ago or a year ago. I think it might have been 2 years ago.
Yeah.
He won the year that he got the Rocket there, a couple years ago.
Yeah, and then Draisaitl, that year McDavid got hurt, blew up.
So,
Draisaitl won the Hart Trophy, Nick. Our fans forget that when McDavid was out of the lineup.
Exactly. So, I know there's a little bit of tends to be recency bias, not that, just obviously he's not taking anything away, but you have a center right outside those top 4 guys, which are consensus the top 4 players in the league, not just centers. I can't complain with where he's at 5 and looking at last year, 2023. Right
How the hell is Jack Hughes above him? Oh.
Yeah, last year I have a problem with Crosby at 5, Hughes at 6. Again, if everyone's
but remember,
he
had it. I was on him. I was hard on him last year. He didn't have a good year. That's not
Okay.
Everybody agreed with me on that. He really struggled during the regular season, kind of picked up at the end. Stanley Cup run obviously helps that ranking out a lot.
So you like 9 ranking of Barkov last year? I get what you're saying, Nick.
Well, no,
should Hughes have been ahead of him? Crosby?
No, I'm not saying I like
off a little bit.
I'm not saying I like 9. What I'm saying is, based off at that moment in time, I could see why they put him at 9. I would not have put Crosby and Hughes ahead of him last year.
But they're saying Petey's as good as Barkov, if not better. And I was like,
And then Braden Point, I don't really have a problem with that. Maybe Jack Eichel, and Eichel was really good in the playoffs too. But Braden Point, didn't he have like 50 goals that year? And nobody talked about it. Right?
But
if you flip Eichel and Hughes on this list from that year, I would have been fine because let's be honest here, Eichel should have won the Conn Smythe.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously, we know playoffs play a role in it. Jack Eichel.
I'm glad Cody said that. He wasn't saying that to me last week, Nick.
He was was really impressive in that playoff series against us. I mean, just unbelievable.
You could say he helped play Barkov, but Barkov didn't have a lot of help at that point with the lineup that we had and all the injuries.
I mean, let's not bring up that Stanley Cup final. But here's the thing. But the thing is, I don't like for these 2 years. Every guy that was in that top 10 that last year is in the top 10 again this year. The placement's different, but like you said, McDavid, like if we go through the list 1 through 10, McDavid, McKinnon, Matthews, I think we all agree that's the top 3.
Yeah. I always have McKinnon at 2, Cody.
The thing is with Draisaitl at 4, I don't mind it here. The thing is, our fan base are going to want to hold the finals against them.
Yeah, if we didn't play them in the finals, how many of our fans would hold Leon Draisaitl's feet to the fire, Cody? I don't think
that's exactly what I'm talking about with recency bias.
Yes.
I think,
and we should give ourselves credit. We're the Stanley Cup champions.
Yeah, but again, he was hurt. He was hurt.
Yeah.
And it's Leon Draisaitl. We know how great he is, and it's not taking anything away from Aleksander Barkov. It's just recognizing the talent, and he's in that conversation. In fact, he's even in a conversation with Leon Draisaitl is crazy enough, right? But
because people said Leon Draisaitl was a leg and a half ahead of Barkov.
Like if we're taking playoff success that much into account, Austin Matthews would he be below them all? But you have to take everything into account. So. What did Matthews get? 70 goals.
Matthews wouldn't be that high, Nick and Cody, if he wasn't performing like he has been the regular season, which has been exceptional.
Right.
You do have
if you remember last year, I think he had a wrist injury.
Against us. Yep. And then this year was that weird.
And then he just put off.
So our fan base, Nick, that has not watched the Maple Leafs or the Oilers close, more so the Oilers. But let's just say, for argument's sake, the Oilers and the Leafs. They saw Matthews banged up 2 years ago in the playoffs. In this past playoffs, they saw Draisaitl banged up against us.
Yeah,
again, you don't truly get to appreciate the greatness of certain players, because you're not watching them every night. But there's no doubt in my mind that.
And I see Matthews and Draisaitl, McDavid a lot in Canada, so I know what.
But that top 5, I don't have an issue with at all. In fact, I think it's the perfect top 5.
If you flip Barkov and Draisaitl, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, you could, but I think the argument's stronger to put Draisaitl above Barkov for right now. Because the thing is, I'm not worried about these rankings per se. As long as he's top 5, I'm good. Anything below 5, I think, severely disrespectful.
Yeah, I think at this point, if you have Crosby, Point, Eichel, that's where I start to get all right. Like Crosby, I just think at this point, especially now with the cup for Barkov, Barkov's easily surpassed him. And I think that top 5 is really kind of set in stone.
Yeah.
Cody's very sensible what he just said there, Nick. He's like, I look at things from a tier perspective or a rankings, and it's like, if he's around that range, I'm fine. Nick, you get fired up on our post-game show and different things, but you're pretty sensible as well with rankings. So when Cody's saying that, I think our fan base has to
again, I think we know it's McDavid, McKinnon, McDavid by himself.
Yeah.
Then I think McKinnon kind of has his own tier. I know
do that too because of playoffs.
But I honestly think it's McDavid, then McKinnon, then Matthews, Draisaitl, then maybe a step below there, right there.
Yeah.
Would the biggest argument, guys, be Leon has, and I don't want to get away from the Panthers and Barkov here, but that Leon, with his recent performance here, the gap has really widened with McKinnon being above him. And I know.
Yeah.
Well, I always thought that. I mean, again, you just see listen, I know we can't only worry about playoffs, but it's not like McKinnon's been
But that's when you go against
bad
the
in the regular
best.
season, right? It's not like McKinnon's been terrible in the regular season, right?
Oh,
Now he's
And-
starting to put numbers up in the
But-
regular season.
Right? But I
Yes.
mean, you compare that. I mean, just and you just watch him play, right? Like I know Matthews is an unbelievable player, right? But just the intensity of Nathan McKinnon, how he can make things happen, how he can absolutely take over a
He
game.
takes over games and parts
And
of
it's just unbelievable. Like if you I as a hockey fan, I want to look on the ice, look on the bench, and be like, okay, feel a little bit more comfortable now because I see that guy's dialed and I see that guy's focused. For me, that's Nathan McKinnon. He's just a winner, you know.
He's a captain without wearing the letter. He's like,
Yeah.
what are you eat? What are you eating? How are
yeah,
you training?
I'm
you doing?
I'm surprised. Like, I think they're doing it out of respect for Landeskog,
Ultimate
but-
respect.
but I'm surprised they haven't put the C on him. I'm truly am, considering.
Yeah, I think they're doing that out of respect for
Yeah,
Landeskog,
like,
but,
especially-
You see Matthews now with the C.
Yeah, I mean,
No.
yeah, but that's a little different. But like the thing is, like it kind of shows because we played those four guys this year, and all four. Like I remember that game in Colorado, Barkov gave McKinnon and McCarr fits.
I was at that home game when they won 4-0,
Yeah, they
and
it
yeah,
that
it's just clinical.
that just shows like how much of a bastard Barkov is to play against. He's a matchup problem for every single guy on this list. And just to a point, but
Yeah.
moving on down the list, 6 through 8. I think you move like
Yeah, point up.
I think you flip Crosby and Point to me, and then you just put Crosby at 7. And
Yeah,
then,
I mean, I think Sidney Crosby,
yeah,
just and I like Jack Hughes and I like Jack Eichel, Elias Pettersson. Just
I like Eichel better than Hughes. Hughes gets
Yes,
the
I do.
highlights, flashy plays.
But if I were gonna put again, I know Elias Pettersson had another really good year, right?
He-
But I just
yeah,
he has
but-
contract
the
distraction.
contract distraction.
and he
and
was
I'm trying not to let
banged up at
recency
the end.
bias. I'm trying not to let recency bias come into play here, but I can't ignore that playoff performance.
He
It
was extremely banged up.
that's it, yeah, exactly. But I just
Yeah.
can't
I-
get over that.
I see
Jack
what
I think
Hughes,
Hughes. I just want to jump in. Hughes and Petey on this list. Pedersen. They're two guys in this top 10. I think that avoids contact and avoids getting into the rough areas. It's playoff time.
yeah,
but-
I'm going to be honest. Based off this past year, I wouldn't have Jack Hughes in the top 10. I mean, he missed too much time. He just wasn't as effective as he was the previously. And that's not a knock against Jack Hughes. Like some players just have a bad year.
Team performance was
down.
bad. You don't want to put that all on him, but
Yeah,
but,
but they
knocks
they
him
were
down.
decimated with injuries early.
But it knocks him down a few spots. Do I still think he's a top 10 center? Yeah, but I mean,
I think that puts pressure on him coming into the season. We talked
Yeah.
about Leon
Oh, yeah.
pressure at 4. There's pressure on Hughes at 9.
It's like speaking of front office hot seats, I don't think there's a seat hotter in the NHL right now than Tom Fitzgerald.
and that's a far cry
Because
from
he
last
did-
year. Remember, everybody was talking about GM of the year. This guy.
Yeah, up for GM of the
Yeah.
year.
I mean, phenomenal job. They got Toffoli in the offseason.
Then they
opened up
lost
the
that trade.
goaltending.
Because
Hey.
Sharon Govich went to Calgary and became a 30-goal scorer.
They're
Exactly,
young
but they
defensemen that
ignored goaltending.
drafted.
They
Nemec.
ignored goaltending. They ignored
just-
goaltending. And,
Yeah, it's just but like if you put Crosby at 7 and here's the thing, I still think Braden Point's really underrated because he's the most silent 50-goal scorer you'll ever see.
He's one of my favorite players that's not a Panther, but I
Oh.
wish he wasn't wearing that lightning bolt.
Gonna be
if-
interesting to see the role he takes on now.
He has to
Stamkos
with
not being
Stamp.
there, right? And that power play, we know how deadly that power play has been. Braden Point, a big part of that.
That's another team that is lacking a captain. I think that was on our Friday night trivia.
right,
Cody,
yeah.
5 teams in the NHL with that, and I think it's probably going to go to Hedman, but Point is.
I think it already did go to Hedman, did it
No,
not?
they haven't named it yet.
Not yet. Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if they left it a year out of respect for Stammer, but because some teams do that. But
They might, but I think Tampa's a business team that we've talked about. Where they just
but the thing is with Hughes, like in the physicality in the playoffs, he's still particularly young. He's like 23, I think. So, and I think he can learn how to play that like that eventually. I just don't. I think it'll come like 2-3 years from now. Like when he's like fully like matured as a player, understands everything.
But they're kind of accelerating their win now window.
I
now.
know,
They
and
have to,
that's
like be there with JT.
If I could
Miller,
ask a
that's somewhere else.
question,
Besser,
are there any snubs, do you think, from the top 10? You know, Kirby, you're talking about
I'm not
Jack Hughes.
further. I didn't dig super.
I'm not a fan of this guy, but I can make an argument for Aho being here.
Is there
Cody of all people? Oh,
Yeah.
really? Wow.
I mean, let's look at the next half.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
what I was
this
going to
is-
look at.
They have JT Miller above him, and Bedard at 13. I didn't see
My
him.
guy is Bedard. Looking at
I
that.
mean,
but he's not
based-
better. Oh boy,
Based off that 11 through 20 right here, I can't realistically look at any of those guys and be like, you know, if they're top 10. Like, I know a year ago, Tim Stutzla, he had 99
Really good.
points.
Yeah.
And then he just, I don't know what happened. I think he had an injury or something. I know Kirby.
Ottawa fans, you guys get mad at me when I say this name. Ottawa fans, we're saying Mini Gretzky, I think.
Yeah, but you know, Zibanejad had a down year. We saw that magnified.
took a lot of heat from the New York
took a
media
lot of heat.
after the playoff bow out.
Nico Hischier.
Hischier and Larkin, to me, they just like level. They're never.
I'm
like,
going to be honest with you. I think Nick Suzuki. I think he's a good player. I think 16 to 20, like, because you know, maybe 18 to 22 was like the perfect spot for him. I just think he had a really good year, impressed me. I think this year's going to tell me a lot more about Suzuki because I'm not 100% sold on him just yet.
Kirby's not going to like this, what I'm going to say. Bedard's too high. Because there are two key words in this. Right now.
Right now, I have.
Do you think he's top 20?
Right now, I have him on Team Canada. I'm not doing it for a marketing ploy. I'm doing it because he deserves a spot on that team. Put him on the fourth line C. We're going to get into some Four Nations talk as the season goes along. We'll have some guests. I would have him on the 4th C for Team Canada right now.
Yeah, but the thing is...
Where are all the other three? They're above him.
But,
yeah, I agree with you, Cody. I think Sebastian Aho.
But he's not better than Rope Hintz. He's not better than... I don't think he's better than Stutzla right now. Like, he's a...
Bedard.
Like,
I think he's better than Suzuki right now. I just, you know...
A Larkin too.
Robert
the discussion.
Robert Thomas had a really good year in St. Louis.
He did, but he's got to work his way up.
Yeah, I mean,
he doesn't have the pedigree of Bedard.
He's extremely underrated.
Again, Nico Hischier.
I think he's a Panther player.
He's extremely underrated.
But 18 is respectful for Robert Thomas.
I mean, Nico Hischier had a really good year. 2 seasons ago now, I was talking about Jack
not
Hughes.
this year.
But not this year. He wasn't really that great. Again, like, you know, there's been a lot of talk of, he's this great two-way player, and I think he is, and I think he has the potential to be. But, you know, I mean, just I think that first, like, again, that's what I'm looking for in like Nick Suzuki, right? Like Nico Hischier is a great year 2 seasons ago, falls off this year. I know there were other issues here, and while I think Montreal is going to get even better as time goes on, I just don't know about Nick Suzuki. I think he's a good player.
He's a stopgap for him.
But I don't know if he's like the truly elite number one. I think they would need to get a better number one.
This is an interesting comparison here that I just thought of. He's basically their version of like our version of Stephen Weiss, where
I think he's better than Stephen Weiss.
Yeah, but he's the 1 seat because based off they're in the middle of a rebuild. He's stopgap. Like on a good team, like on a really good team, he's a 2C, or he could be a 1C if like he elevates his play.
Really good wingers.
If you have really good wingers on his side, right. Like, but to me, Bedard's I put him 17 to he's in the 17 to 20 range. I just can't.
Yeah,
the Weiss comp for me because you guys mentioned his name and he's recently celebrating with the Stanley Cup. Larkin and Suzuki is that Weiss.
Not gonna lie, that choked me up a little bit seeing him and Weiss with that cup.
Yeah, maybe think of memories and hanging out with Kulikov there. But I would say Larkin and Suzuki are my current day Weiss comps of where he would be ranked.
Larkin's a step above a Weiss.
I think Larkin's closer to Rope Hintz.
Yeah. I think you're a little down on Larkin.
But he's given chance after chance after chance. And I think we talk about a guy on this podcast, Aleksander Barkov, who's criminally underrated. I think Larkin gets his just due all the time, and I don't think he ever meets.
But here's my argument.
I think earlier in his career, because remember he had that all-star performance.
Yeah,
like
a little bit fastest skater, but that was a really glimmer there. And then he kind of leveled out.
Yeah, I agree. With
he never elevated higher, Cody.
But here's my argument
like
with Larkin.
Miller has, and these other guys have.
But here's my argument with Larkin. he is the engine that Detroit needs. Did you see him? Did you see them without him? That with him, they were a wild card team for most of the time that he was healthy. And then once he was hurt, wheels came flying.
But his whole existence, like Stephen Weiss, is not playoff appearances. And, Weiss finally gets one later in what?
I have no idea. We'll see. But I don't have a problem with them at 15. I think Stutz is a little down for me.
We talked about Draisaitl facing some heat. Petey facing some heat. Lower down this list. I think you got Dylan Larkin at 15. That this is a make or break year within the rankings.
Yeah, I don't think it's more heat on him. I think the heat's got to be on Yzerman for me in Detroit, because I don't think he's done.
There's a lot of ways.
Yeah, but you got to put the leaders in the room in there when you've been there 6 years, 7 years.
I agree. I talk about Yzerman. I think there's a lot of wasteful spending there. I think Larkin really was, he drove that team last year. I know there was the addition of Patrick Kane and everybody else, but Dylan Larkin, like, you just see him play. He has a lot of passion. Definitely, I know he played in the playoffs early in his career, but if he ever got into a playoff series now.
Okay. I'm just going to jump in. We're going to see him on the world stage with America then. He's a lock.
Yeah.
We'll see him.
Well, he should be.
I have to look, but I think he should be. But
he's middle. He's probably more third line. Probably.
I don't want any excuses if he's playing second line, third line.
I think
I'll perform the other guy across
a really fierce playoff performer.
Because Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was one of the best players for Team North America in the World Cup way back when. So Larkin should be able to do the same thing.
Hold up. Let me just double check something because Eichel and Hughes are your top two centers going into this.
Yeah, so if got a favorable kind of.
If we're basing off this list, I think you kick Larkin to wing.
Yeah, they might.
Just because of the Miller.
Is there anybody?
But USA's deeper on wing now too. So.
I have a question. Is there anybody noticeably in the top 20 that isn't from last year that isn't on it this year, or vice versa?
Let me check.
Take a look at that.
Elias Lindholm, Kopitar,
Tage Thompson was a big draw.
Kopitar, Evgeny Malkin, Tage Thompson.
Tage Thompson was 11 last year for a listening audience.
And now he's unranked.
And so you see how things just go up and down. Like Tage Thompson, I think 50 goals last year, and then this past season was even at a point per game.
I think he might have been.
I mean, there was one point where he was really struggling, and
Elias Lindholm at 20 last year on these rankings, 2023.
So you have Lindholm, Malkin, Kopitar.
He was
and
56
Thompson.
points in 71 games. So, and he played 7 less games and nearly had a 40-point drop off, 38-point drop off.
Big, yeah. I know Lex, one of our.
Now I know he dealt with some injuries, right? But I mean, again, that just goes to show you
38-point drop off. I mean,
1 year you can't make a determination off that. You have to do it for a consistent amount of time.
We'll see if he's closer to what he was 2 years ago.
But that's the case I'm making with Suzuki. That's the case I'm making with who else was I? Could you go back to the 2024 list real quick, Cody? Or did you see something real quick?
Suzuki, Larkin.
Suzuki. We talked about that with Robert Thomas. He's got to, repeat that effort. But yeah, Suzuki, Stützle, right? 99 points dropped off. So these are guys with a lot of high upside, but we'll see. I mean, injuries happen, circumstances happen throughout the year, coaching changes, whatever. So we'll see. But
I mean,
I think the top 10 for sure, and 11 through 20, I really think is based off the year, although there are some locks there.
We'll see if Bennett or Lundell cracks his top 20.
I'm not going to lie. I just looking back at the list, there's a huge snub. And it's a me and Kirby guy on Jake Kopitar needs to be on this list.
Yeah.
I'm not going to
list. I'd have Larkin and Suzuki maybe a little lower. I don't know if I have a guy that just.
I don't know. I might take Bedard out of this list and throw Kopitar in.
I don't think.
So you think they're doing it just for clout and clicks to have him at 13?
Yes, his name alone is him at 13.
I'm not looking at it like that.
But the thing is right now, and look, Tage Thompson's injury knocked him out of this list.
Yeah, that's fair. Bedard had an injury.
Bedard missed 3 months.
Was it 3? I thought
it was 2. It was 2 to 1.
He missed a significant amount of time.
Yeah,
I don't know if he finished at a point per game or not. But
I think he was close. Hold up.
He was right around a point per game.
I think he was close. And that point per game, that's a stat that matters.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're playing how many minutes power play with everything?
61 points in 68 games, so he nearly was point per game.
That's
Okay,
impressive.
so like
if you go back and look at past rookies, that's impressive.
And there were some injuries. There was injuries there with other players. Kirby doesn't love this guy, Taylor Hall. I mean, that was a
key injury.
That was a key injury, but I think this year they got some.
They had the Corey Perry distraction.
He should be point per game because you have Taylor Hall coming back from the injury. Remember,
Bertuzzi.
they just brought in Tyler Bertuzzi. You have your defensive prospects now coming in.
Don't they have Mikheyev too?
That's right. They did trade for him. Mikheyev might actually go back to what he was in Toronto and Chicago, because in Vancouver he kind of got phased out. But
plus, I think a year or two, Connor Bedard. I mean, the guy's just going to get significantly better.
I think so. Let me retract my take out Bedard statement. Then I think you move Bedard to 17, like 15 to 19, somewhere in that range. I think 13's too high, especially because he doesn't have the background the other guys below him have, like the hints, for example. But
the furthest I would drop him is that 15, 16, 17 range.
Andrei Kopitar deserves to be on this list, though. And I'll take that. And just...
Anything else, gentlemen, in this top 20 list here? Again, if you guys are listening to us on Apple or Spotify while you're working, I get it, but you kind of get full benefits of turning over to YouTube and seeing when we do these segments and rankings and things like that.
I don't here's a better question. Who was a bigger fall off for this year? Thompson or Malkin?
Well,
I kind of expected it out of Pittsburgh, so
I'll say the more disappointing one was Tage Thompson, especially because
to make the playoffs.
Because here's the thing: biggest question was goaltending. Goaltending was the best part of them. It was their best quality this year.
And Buffalo improved on their PK, where the year before that was their problem in defense. I think improved on their defense.
If I would have told you what UPL would do prior to last season, prior to this past season, I think everybody would have had Buffalo making the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, you weren't even talking. You were not in the audience. Wasn't even talking about them. They were talking about Devin Levi taking the number.
Yeah,
one.
but
they were talking about Dark Horse Vezina and Colin.
Buffalo fans.
Here's the thing. Me and Kirby talked about this on Spaces vividly because Buffalo missing the playoffs by a point. They were like the popular playoff pick. But I was like, I don't
even more than Ottawa. I was on Ottawa more than Buffalo, but I was on Ottawa and Buffalo.
I didn't believe in Buffalo because of the goaltending. I really didn't.
But I didn't believe in Pittsburgh or the teams below there. I barely believed in New Jersey being the third seed in the Metro, and they didn't even get it.
Yeah, but no one expected. The Islanders and Capitals were the shocks.
Capitals for sure. I don't think we were pegging.
You didn't expect Charlie Lindgren to be good, but the thing is with Pittsburgh, the defense core really just took a nosedive with Letang.
But I just say bringing Carlson and you need to, and the Gensel situation I didn't like either.
Yeah, but I guess we'll go down to this down the road. But I understand why Tampa let Stamkos go, but I don't get why they Gensel's the replacement. And I don't get Pittsburgh walking away from Gensel and just doubling down, tripling down into that aging core. Just I don't know, and Carolina couldn't get Gensel and stuck with Natchez again. I give credit for Carolina trying though. They tried. I don't know what you do there. It's a tough situation. I think Carolina's situation is harder to decide than Pittsburgh or some of these other teams we're talking about. Oh no, it's easier. You just blow it up. Buffalo, Ottawa. If you don't start winning, then some of your young core, you're out of here. But Carolina's tough because they've had success and they've had playoff success, but not enough to the standard that they should be. And I get that, Cody. Buffalo got tougher in the bottom six, which is something I agree with to a point. But the goaltending just needs to get better. UPL. Yeah, but if Buffalo and New Jersey keep saying our goaltending needs to get better, it's just a broken record. But New Jersey went out. But New Jersey has a really good tandem now in Jacob Markstrom and Jake Allen. But Markstrom has historically not been good his first year going to a new team, and it takes time. So they don't have time to waste a year here. But they have Jake Allen as a stopgap, so I think they'll be all right. I'm not high on Jake Allen. They just need 905. They just need league average. Okay. They don't need something spectacular because I think they revamped their decor, which I think. Well, then Mr. Dougie better be healthy. Should be better. That was a big part of them missing. Cody's the Dougie Hamilton apologist. I'm not a Dougie Hamilton apologist. He's a big part of that decor. like Seth Jones may be overrated, but he's a big part of the Blackhawks decor.
Oh, I think it's a big part of the problem. When you're a big part of a team and you're not the solution, you're a problem, or you're not.
Well, I mean,
solution.
Well, here's the thing: they sucked without him, so he can't be all the problem.
You're going to use that as defense. Okay, that's fine.
Did you not just use?
Did you just? It wasn't the hardest in the world, guys, to get a top 3 position, but they couldn't seem to do it. Injuries or not.
Yeah, you just said.
I don't know, Cody. We didn't have Brandon Montour and Aaron Ekblad. We seem to do all right.
I don't know. The Islanders to me are still just a wild card team. I don't view them
they don't
as
do
division winners.
nothing. They don't prove anything. But the thing is, they like the only thing that's keeping me that keeps them in playoff contention is Sorokin. It's the only thing. They have the best goalie tandem in the NHL right
and they
now.
didn't even play him. They didn't even play him.
He's underselling the defenseman, Nick, that you and I are high on.
Oh, Dobson?
Oh, Noah Dobson, yeah. Somebody's got to score on that team. So
I mean,
he's a key player in those 2-1 games.
I mean, it's 3 guys. It's Nelson, Barzal, and Dobson. It's no one else.
That's a guy. Nelson's a guy's criminally under.
Actually, I can make the argument for Nelson wanting to be on here. I think he could be on here above Shizuki.
Our fans would like to hear this, but if Nelson was above Bennett on a list, I wouldn't be too upset.
I mean, people are going to hate me for saying this, but Brock Nelson's better than Sam Bennett. I mean, Bennett brings the toughness and all that. I understand that, but hockey-wise, Brock Nelson's another underrated player because he's quiet.
I remember doing a rankings head-to-head, and someone asked me, Bennett better than this player, Bennett better than that. When I got to Brock Nelson, I was like, man, that's like a dead heat, or really close.
No, it's not a dead heat at all.
You'd have above, yeah. Okay.
I don't think it's a dead heat at all for me.
But that's where I think Brock Nelson's criminally underrated.
There's I think a bunch he's one of the Islanders that are let's see, he was 69 points in 82 games last year.
I don't know if he could do what Reinhardt did in the system that he's in, but if you put Brock Nelson in the Panthers system, his numbers are good.
He had 75 points the year before, 36 goals, 34 goals.
Wow. So it's below Reinhardt from 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, 3 straight years he's gone from 37, 36 to 34. So
model of consistency if you rank that, yeah.
Look, 3 straight 30-goal season, and this is starting when he was at age 29. So this that's the thing. If you're a fan of, like I said, you're a fan of the Panthers, just get a chance to watch every team. I mean, the ESPN Plus thing is one of the best things that the NHL's ever done. I love it. I can get every game, unless it's on NHL Network, or TNT. But I can get it's the NHL has struck gold with that subscription. I truly believe that.
And guys, we're going to continue to do rankings as we go through the offseason and even into the regular season, because now we're on YouTube. We're going to do some tier maker lists. Yes, we're going to try to keep it Panthers centric, but we're going to also do positions, players. I think Nick even mentioned coaches, but we're going to do a unique spin on it, not just what you see out there on Instagram and Twitter. We'll try to add a unique spin to our community and make it a challenging list and some lists that you guys don't see out there.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I can't make a list if not every name's in front of me, because I'm going to forget somebody.
Well, you're going to be kind of captaining it there because Cody's working behind the scenes there, putting all this up on the screen here and moving pieces around. So we're going to do that, and then you guys can agree or disagree. Appreciate all the YouTube comments as well, Cody. We have our, I just want to get this in, we have our fantasy football draft this weekend ahead. By the time you listen to this recording, it'll be after the long weekend.
Champ right here. Let's go.
Yep. You're gonna bring home the championship, and then our trivia Friday nights as well. And then as this offseason continues and we get into training camp, we're going to start to do some Atlantic Division breakdowns.
But Kirby, I just have one question for you.
Yeah.
Do you know where you can find pucks like this, from my favorite playoff series ever?
Oh, I think they had a recent autograph signing there with Tarasenko. Who's on that?
This is Matthew Tkachuk and Sebastian Aho. This is I think this is from game 3.
Game 3.
The one nothing.
Sorry.
The Sergei Bobrovsky show was this game.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Nothing. The famous clip there of that nice save that he made. But Nick's got a puck collection. He's got to show us when he's back home. But yeah, let you know here with Caneswear, they had a nice autograph signing collection of Panther players. Former Cat Ryan Lomberg, some nice photos out there for everyone. But just want to let everyone know, Caneswear Panthers Fever is here. Are you geared up? Caneswear and DAVIE is the place for all your Florida Panthers needs. They have the latest gear, for our favorite NHL team. Jerseys, polos, t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and more. Caneswear has you covered. Stop by their store in Davie or at pantherswear.com. Again, that's pantherswear, wear.com for all your Panthers needs.
This is the Cats and Rats podcast. And now, a special segment.
All right, we're pleased to be joined now by a special guest here. Works currently with FAU, former host and producer of the Florida Panthers, as well as the Miami Marlins. Might have been called the Florida Marlins back then. But someone that I grew up with and loved getting the coverage on Fox Sports. I thought the team was really awesome and their producers, hosts, and all that. We're pleased to be joined here today by Frank Forte. How's it going, Frank?
Great. Getting ready to get on a plane tomorrow to go up to East Lansing, Michigan for the season opening football game. Florida Atlantic and Sparty are going to go at it Friday night.
Oh, wow. We've got some Als in our community here, so shout out to all those FAU alums and athletes that follow us on our post-game show here. So make sure to say hi to Frank if you're on campus or whatever there. See him around campus. But it's great having you on here tonight, Frank. I just wanted to start kind of from the beginning, your journey with the Panthers, maybe even a little bit of your hockey journey before the Panthers, where you kind of picked up the game and the sport. But just kind of an interesting story or two when you're with the Panthers, maybe in the early days that a lot of fans wouldn't know about.
Well, started off, I grew up in northeastern Pennsylvania, and that's where I started my broadcast career. And we used to get WWOR out of New York, so I used to watch the Islander games a lot. I grew up basically where the Penguins American League team is now, but they didn't exist back then. So I didn't have a lot of in-person hockey experience, but I did watch a bunch on television. Came to South Florida in 1981, was working at the ABC station in Miami. And back in January of 1993, when the league was looking to expand, you have to remember that this was right at the time the internet hadn't quite started yet, okay? Mm-hmm. And everybody knew that Anaheim was getting a team because Michael Eisner, wanted to capitalize on the Mighty Ducks. But Wayne Huizenga kept whatever he was doing with the league completely under the radar. There was zero chatter of Florida getting a team. Now, Tampa Bay had come in the year before, right?
Yeah, with Ottawa there.
Right. So there was zero chatter about South Florida getting a team. And I remember I was in the newsroom one day and somebody yelled across the newsroom, and they said, "Hey, Frank, we got a hockey team." And I was like, "What the F are you talking about?" So, credit to Wayne, again, pre-internet day, that would never happen today. But pre-internet days, he kept it completely under the radar. And, that was, I believe, was January of 93. And by September of that year, they had the entire organization up and running in training camp. And, to that point, they had the best year of any first-year expansion team. That record subsequently broken.
That's right. It helped having Roger Nielsen there and Bobby Clark probably was
right. Correct.
Big on the ground level of that. Before he left.
Doug McClain came in year 3, and they went to the final.
Yep.
And then one more year in the playoffs, and after that is when I'll just call it the drought started.
Yeah, that's the only thing that you can kind of recall from that time is Pavel Bure. I still rock the Pavel Bure 10 jersey, but it's just, there wasn't things put together. You know that, Frank, from, the top down, from ownership at the time and management, so many different coaches in and out the door, the budgets being cut. The pre-cap era did not help the Panthers at all.
No.
I'll die on that hill to this very day. So after that last recent lockout, I think that really helped start to build things or give the Panthers a chance, right? Cody, Nick, do you got any questions kind of on the early days there?
I mean, my second question kind of ties into the second half of his statement. But hearing how Wayne Huizenga kept everything hush-hush, he's the godfather of South Florida sports.
No doubt.
I'm thankful for that man, producing 3 of the 4 of my favorite teams. But you mentioned the bad days, and me and Nick started our fandom in these days.
Yeah.
The 4,000 people in the arena, the buy one, get one tickets. And you've seen it all. Producing them game in and game out.
Well,
and that just
my time at the local station ended in 2004, and then I had a year there where I was just trying to figure out what was next. did some radio, and then in 2005 joined Fox Sports Florida. So I became a part of the Panthers and Marlins broadcast team, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. But yeah, those days were some of those. Does anybody remember? Now, this is a true Panther fan question. Does anybody remember a marketing gimmick named Friar Puck?
Oh my!
I don't even know if I know that one. And I'm running our script every week.
They had these guys, 2 or 3 guys, or maybe it was just one guy. It was such a bad idea. You remember New Coke? This had New Coke beat by 100.
Oh my God!
Okay, and it was they had this guy dressed in monk's robes for some ungodly, unknown reason, and he would ring this bell. It was almost like the Liberty Bell before the game, and I think if the Panthers scored. But I just remember people looking at each other like, what the hell is this? What does it have to do with hockey or the Panthers?
Frank, we need to get our producer to put this in on post-production because Cody,
I forgot about that.
It was the worst marketing, for lack of a better word, plan or ploy that any NHL team has ever employed. And that's the hill I'll die on.
Oh my God.
Frank, we do our trivia every week, and our community, they don't remember many Stanley C. Panthers. So I don't remember this Friar.
Friar, I remember like yesterday because I remember I went to a game with my mom and my dad, and they scored. And my
cringeworthy doesn't even begin to describe it.
Oh my God.
I did not have this on the bingo card.
And he rings the bell, right? And my dad looks up and goes, "What the hell is that thing?" Like
that was the reaction of everyone. And the most amazing thing is a bunch of people sat in a room
and thought it was a good idea.
Said, "This is a good idea."
I mean, it's like,
hey, we're talking about same franchise here with Michael Yormark that had the urinals with our logo on it.
Oh
yeah, and people were urinating on them. That's where we were at one time. That's the one I remember.
And then bless his heart, Rick Dudley got to put his name on the cup this year because he was back with the organization.
Right.
But the rotating, Rick Dudley, Mike Keenan, Rick Dudley, Mike Keenan, Rick Dudley, Mike Keenan. I mean, it just that merry-go-round finally, thank God, stopped.
Frank, Mike Keenan was getting paid by 3 NHL organizations at one time.
What?
Yeah.
That's
don't get me started on him because in my mind, he did nothing down here. He stole Alan Cohen's money. He just flat out stole money.
I mean, it's funny.
Not literally, but his salary was, he didn't do anything to earn his salary.
Well, then he's behind the whole Luongo thing with, reportedly, the fight on the plane and Luongo's agent, Luongo and Keenan, just a whole mess at the time.
It's the single worst trade in South Florida sports history. Here's the thing. The Marlins have some bad ones.
Yes.
The Marlins do. I'm a fan, unfortunately.
Now, Cody's the lone fan of us here.
But that trade was horrible. Yeah. I mean, you got 3 guys who did nothing. And Kirby knows. Kirby hates one of them. Alex Old. He can't stand him.
I was at a game in Canada where they were laughing and mocking at him. That's how bad it is.
Actually, really nice guy. Actually, really nice guy, but not.
No, he wasn't ready for prime time. And he looked good. He looked good in Vancouver, or relatively good. Come to Florida, his whole game just fell apart.
Yeah.
But, I was just about to ask
not
you.
The first guy not the first guy and not the last guy that happened to either.
That's true. And who do you blame? The player or the management or, situation? There's so
everything.
much.
It's probably a little bit of everything.
Yeah. But I was just going to ask you, at what point did you feel like, man, this franchise may never win anything? And that may have been the point, because you're sitting here now with the Florida Panthers Stanley Cup shirt. And it's
oh, wait. No, you have a second?
Yeah, I'm curious. Oh, you got all the time in the world. I'm so curious. Oh, the ink, yes, sir.
I did it. I went and did it.
Oh,
I'm tempted to. I'm not gonna lie. I'm tempted to.
Yeah, there's people in our community that ask me. I don't have any ink. So ask Frank. Everyone that's wondering what tattoo to do, ask Frank.
I mean,
after I told my significant other, I told her after 30 years. Through the mostly bad and a little bit of good, it has to happen. That's what I said. It just has to happen.
I mean, they had to do it the hardest way possible.
I was to the point, Cody and Nick, whereas I'm not buying another Panthers jersey until they make the playoffs or win a round.
I didn't
I was
even
just
think
rocking my Pavel Bure jersey forever.
I-
I'm getting the Barkov one.
those games used to be so depressing.
Oh my
They would
gosh.
try everything they could. I was there. They were going like they had the song. It was like Cat Scratch Fever. They coming out with Marcel Gotch and stuff like that. Remember the first time we made a trade? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. To answer your original question, when did I think it was never going to happen? It was probably the 2012 playoffs, where the atmosphere in the building was unbelievable.
Electric.
Go to Game 7.
I was at that game.
Go to
Oh
Game
my
7.
gosh.
Everybody was nobody sat during overtime. And Adam Henrique finally ended it. And I thought, you know what? I don't know if they're ever going to win a playoff series.
Because we were the team. It was meant to be that night, Frank. And if you go back to Game 6, that's when Theodore was kind of a late scratch, and Clemenson had to come in and play that Game 6.
Mention that name.
Win one of those 2 games, right?
Yep, correct.
It's just I remember Game 5. I was watching at home, Game 5, and Scotty Upshaw scored when Brodeur was like outside his net, and that was probably that's an underrated goalie call. Like,
Yeah.
I love that call. Scotty Upshaw, who loves you, baby. Like,
I still think that Marcel Gotch goal to tie Game 7 late in the third, that was the loudest, probably still to this day, that I've ever heard that arena.
Yeah, that
it was unbelievable.
Yeah, and everybody used to make fun of the crowds, and my point was, I get it, but if this team ever puts a good product on the ice, the people are going to come out. That's just South Florida. And that Game 7, I just remember looking around in overtime, and I'm like, nobody's sitting down, and the place was packed.
My friend was there from Canada's first ever NHL game, and he was like, "What electric atmosphere it was!"
Yeah.
It was just
The only thing I think that really comes close was this year, and this year was
Game 7. Reinhardt.
I got to go to Game 5. Didn't end the way we wanted it to, but again, just to be back in seeing a Stanley Cup final game. I went to all the playoff games in '96, so I went to all 4 final games against the Avalanche. But to be back in the final, that was just great. This time it was just as a fan.
Yeah.
But, I don't know if it's completely hit me yet till opening night and throughout
the
this
banner.
Season. The banner raising, and Cody and I and Nick, we host you might be aware, Frank, our audience, our post game spaces. So people are just going to be coming in throughout the year, and they're just going to be like, pinch me, like I can't believe this. And we're just going to be reliving
it. Really was kind of a 2-year thing, like the year before when we really first started it. The wave of emotions throughout the whole 2 years, right?
Oh,
kind of like it's just amazing.
The Paul Maurice season from last year.
It was just amazing. Like at one point, you're like, look at where we were a year ago. Like at one point, we had a losing record. We were like 17, 19, and 5 at New Year's. In 2 seasons ago now, but look, I mean, it's just unbelievable. The turnaround.
I was one of the people that said I didn't understand the Paul Maurice hire. Obviously,
I didn't either. If Cody
obviously it worked out. I mean, because again, I'm a big believer in your record says who you are, and he was a 500 coach, and what made people believe that he would take that team to the next step, but God love him, he did it. And
I think it was just fit,
I'm proud. I'm going to eat that, and I don't care. I was wrong, and I don't care.
Cody and I were called Paul Maurice apologists, but he wasn't on my list. My list was Barry Trotz. So but I just thought we had to see it through. And Cody, you and I said this: if by year 2, halfway through the season, even a month or 2, which was this previous season, if it wasn't going to work with Paul, then move on.
If it went, I would give him the Gallant leash. Where it was like, oh, that must have been fun to cover too. But like the Gallant leash, like it's like he got fired like 25 games after a playoff appearance.
Yeah, and that was unfair because Hubie was hurt.
And they didn't even let the man fly home. They made him take a taxi. Like, just unbelievable. It's just that year, Spaces was, boy.
Yeah, I know Frank follows some of my content, but the post-game stuff, Frank.
That Game 6 at Ameren Bank Arena, the 7-5 game.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say that one earlier, the Boston.
Oh my gosh. Like, the best game I've ever been to. Like, the wave of emotions. Like, when you really think about it, like, this whole chain of events, if Paul Maurice doesn't challenge that hand pass where it literally touches the index finger.
Yeah, it's It was very,
Like,
very
could you
ticky
imagine
tacky.
how different things would be right now if just a video coach didn't notice that?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that go ahead.
The video coach is actually the son of a friend of mine.
Really?
John Kangemi. He was, I don't know how closely you guys follow football, but
Yeah,
he was the quarterback at the University of Pittsburgh right after Marino.
Oh, wow.
Really?
He's one of Marino's best buddies, and John and I did University of Miami games for 6 years together on the old sports channel. And his son is the video coach, and he's almost never wrong when he calls the bench or however he communicates to the bench and says, you need to challenge that. He is almost never wrong.
We herald those, the two guys, I believe, right? That are the video goal review guys behind there from recently.
It's always nice to see.
It's
always nice to see Paul Maurice shout him out too. You could tell, like,
yes.
Yeah, it's just, those guys don't get a lot of appreciation, but man, like, probably biggest moment in franchise history. Like, none of this probably would have happened if that hadn't gone that way.
I always maintain that whoever wins a championship in whatever sport, you got to have a dose of luck.
Oh yeah, that's impossible. You can't win without it. You can't win without luck. I mean,
you can look back in any season of any championship team and point to a moment or two moments, and you go, if that goes the other way, and we were fortunate.
And the war of attrition now with health too, Cody. But as we transition here, Cody, I want to wrap with one more segment here with Frank, as we've kind of been discussing this already.
Yep. I
if
mean,
you want to pull it up there.
Yep.
Aleksander Barkov here recently. The NHL network rankings have come out here, Frank. So we'll just share it here to our YouTube audience. So again, if you're our audio audience on Apple or Spotify, we'll walk you through it here. Cody?
All right. Well, these are the top 10 centers by NHL Network's list. This is not our list, but this is the top 10 centers in the NHL according to the NHL Network. At 1, Connor McDavid. I mean, there's no other way around it. 2, Nathan MacKinnon. 3, Austin Matthews. 4, Leon Draisaitl. 5, Aleksander Barkov. 6, Sidney Crosby. 7, Braden Point. 8, Jack Eichel. 9, Jack Hughes. 10, Elias Pettersson.
Frank, what are your thoughts kind of on these rankings here? Specifically, Aleksander Barkov. I've got a lot of messages, tweets, DMs, people really pushing Barkov up over that, kind of 4 ledger there with Leon. I think some have attempted to push him up higher than that, Cody and Nick, but I don't think you can with, the pedigree of McDavid year in, year out. Nathan MacKinnon, Stanley Cup winner prior, would have a C on his chest if not for Gabriel Landeskog. And then you got Matthews there and Draisaitl. Obviously, Matthews, completely different player than Barkov, but we got to see that head-to-head matchup, Frank. Barkov and Draisaitl there. But Draisaitl, we've talked about this, guys. He was really banged up, I think, in the playoffs. So a lot of Panther fans see him in the finals there. 0 goals in his last 8 games. That's not the Leon Draisaitl that you see year in, year out. So, Frank, kind of what's your thoughts on Barkov here in the rankings? And just, the guy that you've interviewed, a guy that you've been around. Love to hear some stuff on that.
I actually don't have a problem at all with that. Now, if you wanted to put Barkov and Draisaitl and flip those two, I don't think anybody would have a real problem with that either. I think the first 3 are pretty spot on. But you know what? Barkov's got his name on the cup. As does MacKinnon. And that to me is more important than these rankings. I was, again, fortunately in the room when the Panthers interviewed Barkov at the draft in New Jersey the day before the draft. And there was a lot of sentiment. First of all, the Panthers tried to trade up to get MacKinnon because they were convinced he was a generational guy. Of course, Colorado wasn't budging. But there was, I think, a lot of people in the league who thought that Seth Jones would be the second pick.
Yeah.
And then Jonathan Drouin and then maybe Barkov. But the Panthers brought him in and they interviewed him. And as you can imagine, he's never been the most outspoken guy, but you can imagine as an 18-year-old, he didn't say a lot. He was kind of quiet. And when he left the room, there were some scouts that said, man, I don't know, does he have the personality to be a star, to be a team leader? And the head scout at the time, Scott Luce, stood up and said, guys, just remember, he's talking to us in his 3rd language because Finnish-born Russian parents, and he was speaking to them in English. And he said he answered everything we asked him. He didn't give long answers, but he didn't dodge anything. and he said he's ready to come over and do his thing. And Dale went back and watched video of him in shootouts in Finland, and he said, "Yeah, this is our guy." And turned out to be an inspired pick.
Yeah, it's just I remember seeing clips of that interview. He was talking about that back then Huberto, we drafted 2 years prior.
Yeah,
because 11.
They asked him, "What do you know about our team?" And he said, "That Huberto, he's a pretty good player." That was his answer. Succinct, to the point, but spot on. And then I was the first, other than the national, whoever was covering the draft, TSN or whoever, I was the first South Florida reporter to interview Barkov once he was picked. And he had his dad there and his advisor or his mentor, Ville Nieminen. You remember that name?
Yeah.
That he was one of Barkov's. I think they were teammates in Liga on the Finnish team.
Yeah, Tapera.
He was at the draft with him, and over the years we've seen Barkov grow into who he is, to be a captain, the best two-way center in the game. Just an amazing guy, and they keep calling him underrated, and I would say but he's the kind of guy you have to watch 60 minutes to fully appreciate all the things he does, because
especially watching him in person, it just gives you
he's always on the right side of the puck. He's rarely in the wrong position. He's so strong on the puck. It's stuff that doesn't show up in box scores. And
there's times in games where you could just tell he's taking a game over, right? I think we all know how great Matthew Tkachuk is, right? And he can kind of take over a game, but I just think that when Aleksander Barkov is going 100%, I think there are very few players. In fact, I think it's really the only 4 players on this, centers at least, on the list ahead of him, that could really kind of take over a game. Was talking about when he's out of the lineup, you could see on the power play trying to enter through the neutral zone. Just it doesn't work nearly as good as when Aleksander Barkov does.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a really underrated part of the game. Zone entries on the power play. He's always the guy that's taking the puck across the line.
And it's nobody can get the puck off of him.
Right.
Nobody can get the puck off of him. And another thing, Kirby talked about this in the past, is he's really ramped up his physicality over these last 2 years. It's kind of made him a more effective player. And, he's never had 100 points in a season, right? But it's just everything he does, especially there have been some years, the defense on paper hasn't been as great. And we had a pretty good defense this past year, but I think Aleksander Barkov, there was that stat in the playoffs. I think it was how many minutes without a 5-on-5 goal against, and against some of the best players in the league. So, just everything he does. It's you have to watch him, and especially in person. I remember watching him the lockout season with 5,000 people in the crowd. I had got season tickets for the first time, and I'm looking at him my gosh, this guy's I knew he was good, right? Yeah. I was I didn't realize he was that good. And ever since then, he's just taken his game to another level.
Yeah, and I think I tweeted out this year after one of the playoff games, I like pissed off Barkov.
Oh.
Right?
Boston series last year.
It's I like when he gets his haunches up and decides, okay, nobody's going to mess with me.
Yep.
I'd even say Frank the Carolina series too last year.
Oh, that was his coming out party. Because prior to that, the Boston series early, he wasn't he was sick. He wasn't playing that well. Didn't get his first goal till Game 6.
He got called out by Canadian media, which some of the American media doesn't remember. They're he needs to be physical. He needs to stand up for himself.
Speaking of that, Paul Maurice, I don't remember. I was listening to, I forget who it was. I think it was Elliot Friedman on his podcast, and he said, Paul Maurice, I think after Game 5 or after Game 4. I don't know where he says, Aleksander Barkov has been dealing with illness this series. I don't know where it wasn't asked a question, and Elliot Friedman brought up a point, kind of like how Maurice did in Winnipeg. That was Maurice really for the first time in Florida defending his captain.
Yep.
And after that, they just went on this crazy run, and it hasn't stopped yet. Hopefully it doesn't stop.
Hopefully not. And you mentioned the Carolina series. But what I always remember was the fake going between.
Oh my! That's my favorite goal. I just not only because it's skill, but it's the time and place when it happened. Because they were down 1-0, and Carolina gets mixed up because they're they're a man-to-man system, and they get mixed up pretty bad. And Mahura finds Barkov wide open, and it's like it's not a good angle. Let's be real; it wasn't a good angle because he was going horizontal to the goal. But that fake freezes the goalie. Just that was the
we
first.
talked about this last podcast or two, Cody, up there at the Carey Price goal, and then the setup in MSG to Reinhardt.
Oh, that one,
the sick assist.
Oh,
those are the three. I think
not the Joker, the juggler.
Yes, yeah. I mean,
and it makes it look so casual. He just plays it off like a boss. I used to do that in baseball.
He does
just play off stuff. Like an unassisted double play. Just go
that
sit
pass to Carter Verhaeghe, game one of the Tampa series, that seam pass to Carter Verhaeghe. Yes, the back door. Yep. Did that a couple times this year against Colorado, against some other teams. So,
the passes. There's probably
oh my gosh.
But
I'm like right at an angle where you could see Verhaeghe like cutting back door, and you could just see the pass, like unbelievable.
But my favorite play was game one of the Cup final, where it was the first goal where McDavid cheated for offense. Hockey Psychology posted this. He cheated for offense, and because since he's probably the best skater in the world, he thought he could catch up. Barkov got strides, and he couldn't catch up. He didn't get any ground. Like, Barkov's an extremely underrated skater because he doesn't look as fast, but his strides are smooth and long.
And get down to the ice level, right, Frank?
Yeah.
It's also kind of effortless.
Yeah,
it looks effortless. It doesn't look like he's expending a lot of energy. He covers he just
exactly. People say he's not fast, but again, it's unbelievable. Like, that's just the only word I really have. I mean, this guy is. I don't really know all around just everything he does, and there are a lot of years kind of wasted. Ever since he got drafted, this is the perfect guy for the way our team is right now. Mm-hmm. Absolutely perfect guy.
And the best part is because his biggest asset is his hockey IQ, he's only going to get better. Because like other guys, like me and Kirby have said this about him and Reinhardt. Both of their biggest assets are their hockey IQ, and they get better with time. I mean, look at Datsuk, look at Bergeron. They get better with time. And it's just he doesn't rely on any athleticism. He has a pretty good shot, but I wish he would use it more. But I mean, that's the one niche, the one thing I have with him. Just need to use that shot just a bit more.
He pulls it out every once in a while, and you go, "Why don't we see that more?"
Oh yeah, like Kirby.
That's the only critique of him, I would say.
Yeah, Kirby gets on him because he can walk off the wall in the power play and just pot one, like that one. But we could gush about Barkov all day.
Oh yeah, I appreciate kind of this kind of introspect from Frank here, and kind of the insider knowledge and just being around Barkov early on in his career and things like that. But Frank, before we let you go here today, anything to plug, anything you got going to close out the summer here, heading into a busy probably fall season here for you?
Yeah, it's been really busy since the beginning of August. I got back from vacation right into training camp with the Florida Atlantic Owls. We have our show is on Valley Sports Florida, which the Panthers are not going to be on there anymore, but it was their home right from the beginning. So we're on that channel. It's Thursdays and Saturdays. It's usually Thursday afternoon, sometime between 3 and 4:30. It changes depending on live programming, and then Saturday mornings at 11:30. So you can still catch me there, or go to www.fausports.com, and it's called Inside the Owls Burrow. We have burrowing owls in Boca, not the kind that live in trees. They live underground.
Oh,
there we go. Animal facts here the last few weeks.
Yeah, we actually have a preserve on campus, not too far from the stadium.
Nice. I know we got a lot of FAU supporters in our community and things like that. And Frank, everyone can follow you there on Twitter as well.
Yeah, at Frank J. Forte, Forte. Yep.
I reached out to you, Frank, because you were liking a lot of my content. So I'm like, let me reach out to Frank here in the offseason. Let's see if we can get him in here and share some Panther stories. So hopefully we can have you on down the road here as well, too.
Yeah, anytime. It always surprised me. Somebody in Canada knows and likes the Panthers this much. Okay.
You got a couple.
I try to give those little nuggets and those little tidbits that people don't get. Some people think it's useless facts or different things, but it's little things here and there. And also, this is what the Toronto media is saying about us, or something I heard about the Boston media up here saying about us. Just different markets. Montreal, when they start to get good again, Wait till they start to get good. So.
Oh, by the way, not incidentally, how about the rankings? You talk about rankings. Forsling, 6th ranked defenseman.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're teasing us here because we're going to talk about that in the next podcast. We're figuring who we're going to bring on for that. Oh, when we get talking defensive rankings, Cody and Nick, we go on for
best waiver pickup ever.
Probably, I can't think of any other one. The only one I can think of is
from the Panthers.
Not for the Panthers.
No, he has an argument for history
and history maybe in the league.
Like Steve Sullivan's the only guy I could think of. Like in terms of
a good one. That's a good one.
The greatest, but you get a top 2 pairing defenseman off waivers.
Yeah.
I don't know how much, and you win a cup with them as him on your first pair, averaging 20 minutes a night. I don't know how much better you can get from that.
That's like finding a bag of $10,000 in the street and nobody's around but you.
Yeah, I just...
My brother found a $20, $50 bill when he was like 8, 9, 10 years old. He had to give it back. It was my grandpa's after he came home after a long night of at the Legion. Maybe at Legion. So he didn't even get to keep that. So find it 10 grand.
At least we got to keep Forsling. But
yeah, as always, guys, on the way out here, let's go Cats.